think a few people are switching over from another live stream, apparently. I don't really understand how this goes. Chris just tells me and I'm conveying to you offhand with no technical knowledge. All right, I've been given the go-ahead. Let's go ahead and do this. Welcome to Upright Live. This is a special edition today because we are streaming directly to YouTube. We do this every week on Wednesdays at 10 p.m. or 10 a.m. Pacific time. So if you enjoy today and you're not already signed up, we're having a special right now where if you sign up, you get 2 weeks free if you sign up by the end of the day today. So if you enjoy today, feel like you got something out of it, go ahead and subscribe. And to be honest, we just wanted to give away some stuff for you who, all of you who are at home like we are. I'm streaming to you directly from my house. So if you cancel that thing before the 2 weeks like I do with a bunch of other stuff, that's cool. Get some value out of us. We want you to have good information so that you feel good. Cool? Before we get started, let's talk about what equipment you will need for today so that you're not scrambling to grab stuff as we're going. So you will need a mini band or strap of some kind. I have this cool Committed HP mini band that hooks on so you don't have to try and put it around your feet. Pretty nice. If you want to check it out, Committed HP, we will be putting a link in the description for these because we really like them. You will also need some sort of strap. So I'm going to use the same thing, but for a hamstring stretch, you'll need to put something around your foot and be able to pull it towards you. So a belt works, a yoga strap, a stronger strap. You'll need a yoga block or something similar. So a pillow could work. Whatever you got around that has a good amount of dimensions and is hard because you're going to be squeezing this thing. You will need a band. So I have this resistance band. Chris, can you move with me? I've already got it attached over here to something. So we're just going to be using it as it's attached to something. If you have bands with handles and stuff like that, that would work too. Anything that's a good amount of strength. You don't want it too light. You'll need something to stand on. A step could work fine if you have stairs available to you. You can potentially, I'm going to be standing on these risers, but I've also used this thing in the past. You could even potentially use a couch or a chair. I think you'll be able to figure that out as we come to it. You will need, you might need, these are all things that you might need depending on your level of strength, coordination, whatnot. So if you feel like you're going to want to try the harder versions of the exercises, you're going to want an ankle weight, some sort of resistance. So I have dumbbells available to me. And this can be helpful if you deal with wrist issues, having something to grab onto and hold onto. So dumbbells work fine if putting your hands flat on the ground is difficult for you. So those are all the things you could potentially need as you are going to look for those things in your house. Hopefully you have them available to you, but if you're not, go ahead and do that. I'm just gonna talk a little bit before we get started on the movement. So what we do at Upright Live is we have, over years of working with a lot of beginners, we have figured out what it is that most beginners need to work on, and we are trying to deliver it to you in a really digestible way. So what we need from you is coming into this with a beginner's mindset. What that means is we need you to hopefully be able to approach all these movements with a sense of wonder with your body, curiosity. It's very helpful to explore your body in a way that you are unsure of what you're capable of. Maybe you're able to forget some things that you already thought about your body or things you've been told about your body. Okay? So keep that in mind as we do some of these movements. You might find that you've put limitations on yourself in the past that may prove not to be true. As we're going through these movements, I don't want you experiencing any pain. Discomfort is okay, and actually discomfort is where we need to be most of the time if we're going to be making progress. Pain, we don't need it. So if you experience any pain, specifically pinching when we're stretching in a joint or something like that, don't push into it. Back off before that, and there will be instruction on how to navigate, if you are feeling that pain. But in general, there's always going to be some sort of active component, even if it's a stretch. If you focus on the active component and stay out of the pain, you're going to get a lot of work done, and you're going to make progress over time if you continue to do that. For many of you who are doing these exercises for the first time, I don't need you going really, really, really hard and killing yourself. What I like to tell everyone is you should be training for the year or even potentially your lifetime, not for the day. So if you think about how much you're accumulating over a year's span, that's more important than how much you accumulate today in regards to work. So take it easy on yourself. Again, come at it more with a sense of curiosity. Don't try to kill yourself. Cool? I think that's it. Is there anything we need to add before we get started? Good. Can I have you grab an ankle weight for me? I forgot to grab one. I think there's one right in the garage. All right. So let's go ahead and get started. You're going to need your yoga block and your band, the band that goes around your hips, your mini band. We're going to start out, we actually just put out a video about this, I think yesterday. We call it the W band compression. So you are going to put your band around your feet like this. Thank you. And what's nice about these bands is you can adjust how wide you want it. So I'm going to put that a little more snug around my feet. And then you're going to take your yoga block. And let's all start with putting the yoga block as wide as you can between the knees. If you have something that's not a yoga block, this is, I want to say it's about 10 inches. So something with a good amount of space. We're going to squeeze that yoga block between the knees, lie flat on the back, knees directly above the hips. Okay, so starting out, we're going to get you in touch with your internal rotators of your hip. So all we're going to do to start is put some outward pressure on that band, trying to stretch it. Boom. And you should feel a lot of tension on the outside of the hip. That's all we're doing. Little bit of stretch and relax. I just want everyone really starting to get in touch with those muscles. If this is too hard for you and you might need to find something even wider to put between your knees, or potentially finding a way to lower the knees. If it's really hard for you to hold your knees up like this, you could even hold on to your legs like this and just work the outward movement with the band. So now, here's the actual exercise. We're going to apply pressure outwards on the band, giving it a little stretch, but I don't need you squeezing as hard as you can in that direction. What I actually want you to do is squeeze in on the block harder than you're moving out against the band. From there, if that's all good and feeling okay, last step is to pull the knees towards the chest. Keep your back and sacrum flat on the ground. Pull, always squeezing in, always pushing out. Pull, we'll hold for a few seconds and go out. Okay? So a couple things to pay attention to. Make sure your back stays flat. Make sure the feet stay mostly parallel to each other. We don't want them angling out. Okay? Let's go ahead and put 1 minute on the clock. The goal is to do about 10 to 15 reps here I want you moving slowly, holding in this position in your most compressed position for about 2 seconds, and then moving away. Should do about 10, maybe 15 reps. Cool? Let's get started. So, if you watched our YouTube video that we put out yesterday, this exercise is really good for turning on your internal rotators, your adductors, and your hip flexors. And so this is really going to come in handy for the main movement of today. There's going to be a movement that's going to involve all three of these. It's a big movement, and so we want to prep that movement by grooving the hips and activating all the muscles that we're going to want to have activated when we go into something a little more dynamic and maybe with a little bit of weight. We'll see. Okay, go ahead and take a break. As you're coming out of there, I'm going to talk at you. You're going to need, you might need an ankle weight. If this is a new movement to you, try it without an ankle weight first. And then next time around, if you want to try the ankle weight, you can. But if you've been with us for a while, I think you can go right to the ankle weight. So you're going to put the ankle weight on if you're using it. And then grab your strap. Again, I'm just using this band here. If you could have a belt, a strong band, a strap, whatever you can. We're going to go into a hamstring stretch on one side. So generally speaking, hamstring stretch, we'd like to keep the leg very vertical. Many people have like to deviate by letting the leg move laterally and or letting the leg spin out. So make sure that foot is facing directly forward and the heel is in line with the hip. From here, we can give a little pull to increase the stretch. If you're feeling it behind the knee, you can just unlock that knee. That's fine. It's not bad to feel it behind the knee, but also I know it's very uncomfortable, and you might feel you get a better hamstring stretch if you unlock the knee. So give that a try. Another thing you can do if you're feeling it behind the knee is try not to pull on the toes. You can pull on the heel. If you are feeling it behind the knee, it's a good idea to start stretching your calves though. All right, so here's the actual movement. The movement starts by pulling the other leg straight up next to the leg you have that's stretched. We're going to begin the movement by lowering this leg with a locked knee, foot always facing directly up to the sky, all the way to the ground, and lifting back up. This should be nice and slow and controlled. And as a bonus, each time I lift this leg, I'm going to try and pull this foot just a little bit further to increase my stretch. So let's all give that a try. We're going to shoot for 10 to 15 reps on each side. Your goal, keep this knee that's going down as straight as possible, tapping the heel to the ground and coming back up. If that seems impossible to you, that's fine. Go ahead and start to bend the knee a little bit, and so it'll look more like this. Okay, let's go ahead and do it. Let's do 45 seconds on each side here. So what we're working on in this, first off, you're getting a great hamstring stretch. That's pretty obvious. I think most people have stretched their hamstrings at some point. I think most people need to stretch their hamstrings. So that's great. What we're also working on here is the strength of the hip flexor in a long lever, meaning the knee is straight or straighter. So we get to work on getting the hip flexors to work towards their end range, which is more like how the hip flexors function when you're walking, running, lunging, etc. So we get to expose the hip flexor to some strengthening motion towards its end range, because again, we're going to use that range of motion in our bigger movement today. Man, I'm really building this up. It's going to be fun. Go ahead and switch sides. 45 seconds on the other side. I'll give you a few seconds to get set up. All right. We started? 45. So another thing to pay attention to, make sure your core always stays engaged here. I don't want to go relaxed core and let the lower back come off the ground. So really focus on pushing that low back into the ground. And also at this top position, I don't want to see the tailbone sacrum rolling off the ground like this. The goal isn't to get the foot as far as you can this way. The goal is to get the best hamstring stretch when we're in this position. So it's not helping us if you roll. It's more helpful to keep the sacrum and low back flat on the ground. All right. Next up, let's warm up the wrists a little bit because we're going to do a plank. And I would like for people to do a plank in a push-up position, not on the elbows. So, wrist warm up quickly. We're going to do a finger stretch first. So you're going to put your hand flat on the ground and then lift your palm so that it comes mostly vertical, but the first knuckle of the fingers is still on the ground. And you can see how this turns into a big finger stretch for me. Okay, so we'll hang out there for a sec, stretch your fingers. Make sure your fingers are nice and wide while you're doing this. Actually, with all this wrist stuff, fingers nice and wide. Now we'll do a little bit of strengthening. So you'll lower back to that flat hand position. And if this is hard for you, coming behind the hands tends to take the pressure off the wrist. But if you can, try to stack your shoulders above your wrists. And now push through the ground, lifting back into that finger stretch position. And the more weight you put in your hands, the harder this gets. So easiest version is stacked. But as I start to walk my knees back, coming into a push-up position, I start to put more weight into my hands, putting more load into the muscles that are lifting me. And potentially we could go all the way to a push-up position and do some push-ups with the wrists from there. Next, we're going to turn the hands around. Make sure the fingers face mostly towards the knees. And just a gentle rock backwards. You should feel a stretch, maybe even starting up all the way at the elbow, down towards the wrist. If this is really hard for you, put your hands beside your knees. This will take a lot of the pressure off and allow you to get a stretch. But if you can, let's get here and get a good rock backwards. I like to rock in and out of this motion, but you can hold it. Totally up to you. And the last one we're going to do, flip the hand over, fingers face towards each other, and lower towards the wrist. Now be very careful with this one. It can be very abrupt, the onset of the stretch, and possibly pain, depending on how quickly you went into it. So make sure you're taking it nice and light. Okay, if this is really easy for you to get to the back of your hand, try closing your fists. That should give you a little extra stretch there. I like to move in and out of this one as well, but again, you can hold, totally up to you. Okay, now quickly, let's talk about pelvic tilt. So, you should be aware of the direction that your pelvis is facing. Anterior pelvic tilt is this motion of the front of your hips lowering and the back of the hips raising. Also, since your pelvis is attached to your spine, it's accompanied by this increase of an arch of the low back. So that's anterior pelvic tilt. Posterior pelvic tilt is lifting the front of the hips, lowering the back of the hips, and it's usually accompanied by a little bit of roundness of the lumbar spine. We are going to do the plank. What I need you to do is figure out in your plank how you can go into posterior pelvic tilt. So it can be helpful. Here's a couple cues you can run through. Tuck your tailbone. So you can literally think about trying to pull your tailbone down between your hips, between your legs. You can also think about compressing the front. So trying to compress this portion from the top of the hips to the bottom of the ribs, make that smaller, okay? You can also just think about rounding your back. Try all those cues, see which one works for you. We're gonna go through the plank. So, plank. We're gonna go on the hands. If your wrists hurt, try this first before you go to the elbows. But if you really can't do it from your hands, do it from the elbows. Just make sure that your hands face forward and don't come in like this. Hands are always in front of the elbows. So we're gonna do it from the hands. First step, push the shoulder blades apart. I don't wanna see saggy shoulder blades. So really push apart. Tuck the tailbone, step back, and hold. Let's hold for 30 seconds here. Ready, and go. What I want you to think about when you're in your plank is not how long can I plank for. That's always everyone's goal. Oh, I could plank for 10 minutes. I'm super strong. No, it has really nothing to do with your core strength. What I want you to be able what I want you to intend to do while you're planking is do it for the least amount of time and use the most amount of effort. So I like to think about squeezing my core. I'm imagining I'm trying to pull my hands towards my feet and my feet towards my hands, creating this compression. That's how you're gonna get a lot out of your plank. Take a break. Let's go ahead and do one more round of that W band compression. This time, we all went on the widest. Now, if that was real easy for you, try going to a narrower version of your yoga block and see how it goes. Typically, people find that the narrowest is the hardest. It's not always true, but give it a try. I'm gonna go to the narrowest. Let's put a minute on the clock and let's get started. So remember, squeezing that block hard. Try to pop it. Squeezing the knees towards the chest. You should be feeling a lot of activation on the outside of the hip, a lot of activation on the inside of the hip, and a lot of activation on the front of the hip. Move in and out slowly, hold for a few seconds in that, and don't focus so much on the pulling the knees to the chest. So if you're joining us from YouTube and you have not subscribed to Upright Live, every month everyone gets a document that has a program listed out, and you get videos with that program. So many of the people who are already subscribed have already watched the videos for these. So if you the videos, cool. Okay, we are moving on to the next set of exercises. So for this next set of exercises, you will need, this is where we will need something to stand on. So maybe a chair that has wheels is probably not the best idea. I had someone try to do that. It's not a good idea. So let's keep ourselves safe here. I will show you what it is, and you can decide what you're gonna use. Generally speaking, the higher the object, the easier this is. The lower the object, the harder this is. That's in general. I think you'll be able to figure out the right level for you today. So we're gonna put, this is called a forward split squat, and we're doing a front foot elevated forward split squat. So you are going to put one foot up on something, and the motion is trying to keep the back leg as straight as possible. We're gonna do a split squat, moving forward, hips towards heel, and back up, okay? Generally speaking, pretty easy movement. However, I think you're gonna all find this very challenging. What we're gonna do on our first set is find a decent stretch on the back hip. So we're focusing on the back hip here. I'm gonna really try to tuck my pelvis, just like what we did in the plank. There's a reason why we did it. Tuck the tailbone, move the hips forward and down towards the knee, or towards the heel. Okay, and I'm getting a really good stretch right here on the front of this hip. I'm really trying hard to straighten that knee. It might not straighten all the way, that's fine. But the intention is to straighten the knee, okay? I'm making sure my hips are facing forward, not spinning out. Check that back foot. If the back foot is spun out, it probably means your hips are also rotated. So really try to make sure that back foot is facing forward. It might feel like your foot is pointing all the way across your body, but when you look at it, it's just facing forward. That's very common. Give it a try. So let's all do this together. We're gonna go in and hold for 5 seconds and come out. We're gonna do that 5 times. Okay, let's give this a try. Let's move in and hold. 2, 3, drive through that back knee, straighten it, and come on out. Notice this hip is the exact thing, the forward leg, it's the exact hip motion we're doing in that compression. Let's go in again. Imagine you're pulling yourself forward and down. 3, 4, 5, and out. 3 more. In. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out. Try to squeeze that back hip glute. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, let's switch sides. I'll do this next set facing you so you can see what it looks like from straight on. Okay. So here's some things to pay attention to as we get going here. Let's all get set up. We're gonna do our first set, our first rep. Ready? Let's go. In. So notice as I move in, my knee tracks over my toes. My hip stays mostly in line with the toes and knees. Let's move out. My hips face forward. Let's go in. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and out. Focus on the stretch on that back leg. In. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out. 2 more. In. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, out. Last one. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, take a break. We're going to do a butterfly stretch next, something you've probably all done in the past at some point. I would recommend, unless you know you have an awesome butterfly, I'd recommend having something to sit on to start. Yoga block actually works fine. I use a yoga block all the time to sit on for this. And generally, I want your feet closer to your hips right now. So the closer you can get your heels to your hips, the better. So let's all start here. Now, we're gonna do 3 different things in this butterfly stretch. We're gonna start with putting our hands under the knees. And we're gonna create an isometric contraction where I'm pushing my knees down towards the ground and I'm pulling up with my hands. So there's no movement, but there's a lot of work happening. I'm really making a lot of tension, and where that tension is right in my butt. So your glutes, glute max, does rotation of the hips. We're trying to make the glutes do their job of rotation in this. So if you can, think about squeezing your butt here. Let's all do this together. We'll do this for 5 seconds. Ready, go. Push down with the knees, pull up with the hands. 3, 4, 5, and relax. Good. Now, we're gonna put the hands on top of the knees and do the same exact thing in reverse. So I'm pushing down with my hands, but I'm really pulling up hard with my knees. This time I should feel a lot of contraction on the inner groin. Ready? And go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, relax. Last thing we're gonna do is a gentle stretch. Again, with stretching, I want you to feel it in the appropriate area. So I want you to feel a groin stretch. If you're feeling pinching, stabbing, anything like that, don't go into this. Maybe you just do another contraction where you're pulling up with your knees. But for us, who don't feel pain, we're gonna actually push the knees down towards the ground, feel a stretch, ready, go. 5 seconds, 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. And we're going to go through that a few times. So hands underneath the knees, driving the knees down towards the ground. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hands on top of the knees, pushing down. Ready, go. 1, 2. A lot of tension. 4, 5. Good. Now hands on top of the knees, pushing down in a relaxed fashion, stretching. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Let's go again. Hands beneath the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Hands on top of the knees, pulling up with the knees. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relaxed, pushing down, pushing the knees down towards the ground. Ready, go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. One more round. Hands beneath the knees. Let's go. A lot of tension. See if you can create the most amount of tension on this one. 3, 4, 5. Switch. Same thing. The most amount of tension. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relax. See if you can get the deepest into the stretch now. 2, 3, 4, 5. Good. Take a break. All right. Slowly come out of there. I know getting out sometimes harder than the actual stretch. So now we're going to do another round of those split squats, but we're going to do them in a slightly different way. So we were working on the stretch version of that split squat, where we're mainly focused on finding the stretch in the back leg. Now we're going to work on actually moving in and out in a strength capacity, or maybe at least a muscular conditioning capacity. So we're going to do reps, still moving slow, but shooting for 8, 10, maybe 12 reps. I'll let everyone go at their own pace for a minute on each side. This is where, if you are feeling comfortable, feeling strong in this, you can add some weight. So let's get 1 minute started, Chris. Let's all do this together. Go for it. Sorry, not following, just do 8 to 10 reps on your own.
Someone has asked if they feel a lot of sensation in the knee, but it's not painful.
So, oh yeah, I forgot to address the knee. So the front knee, notice my knee's going into a lot of compression in the front. If that's uncomfortable for you, stay out of it. The hard thing about that question is it's hard to know what type of sensation that is. So I'd say for now, avoid it. Just stop. See how I can stop before my knee goes into a lot of compression? So don't go into that deep of compression now. And I would say gradually try to go deeper over the next few weeks and see if that feeling of that sensation of discomfort goes away. Cool? If you can, your knee should go into a good amount of compression if there's not discomfort there, as long as your knee is going over your toes and not inside of your toes. And when I say over the toes, I mean over the second or third toe, at least, not the big toe. Big toe is still inside. Okay, make sure that knee faces forward. All right, let's switch sides. Let's do a minute on the other side. Ready? Let's go. So your goal here is to try to keep the back knee as straight as possible. And I like to think about pulling myself down and forward. So I'm actively thinking about pulling myself as deep as I can into the position and then pressing back out. You should feel a lot of work going on in the back hip flexors, as well as front glute, quads, and hamstrings. So there's a lot happening on this front leg. Okay? Don't be afraid to let the knees go over in front of the toes. As long as there's no pain associated, you're good to go. All right. Let's do another round of that butterfly stretch. Pull those heels nice and tight to you. Actually, yeah, that should be good. Hands beneath the knees to start. We're going to do that first contraction. This time we're going to do 5 rounds. Sorry, I forgot to mention on the last one. If you can get your hips all the way in the crease of the wall and sit nice and upright against it, that would be ideal. It's okay if the pelvis wants to tip a little bit under. It's not the worst thing in the world, but the more you can work towards getting an upright position, the better. Cool? Hands underneath the knees. Ready? Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and switch. Hands on top of the knees, pulling up with the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and stretch. 2, 3, 4, 5. Hands under the knees. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Pulling up with the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relax. Stretch. Let's go. 2. Hands under the knees. Let's go. 1, 2. Really go for it. And switch. Pulling up with the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3. Shaking is good. Shaking is what we want. And stretch. If you're shaking, that means you're in the right spot. If you're not shaking, maybe you need to try to go a little harder. Hands under the knees. Let's go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Pulling up with the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relax. Stretch. Hands under the knees. Go. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Switch. Pulling up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And relax. Stretch. Last time. Let's do it. Hands beneath the knees. 1, 2, 3. Give it your all. 4, 5. Switch. Pulling up. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Relax. See what you got there. All right. We are done with butterfly for the day. Nice work. Where are we at with time? All right, let's move on. So, next set of exercises, the only thing you may need is some weight. You might need a broom. So if this is challenging, I'll show you a way that you can modify it with a broom. So we're going to do what's called a good morning. The good morning is a hip hinge movement. A hip hinge is this motion where we keep the spine mostly neutral. So meaning there's not a whole lot of change in the position of the spine, but I'm changing the orientation of the torso by bending at the hip. And so my hip joint is the main area where there's movement. Notice my back is still mostly straight in this position. I'd like to keep a normal a normal curve at the bottom here and a normal curve at the top here. So I have a slight arch here, a slight round here in the upper back. And I try to imagine I'm lifting my tailbone up into the sky, and then I stand up, okay? Here's how, if you are having trouble with just that basic motion, a quick trick is to grab a dowel of some kind. A broomstick works fine. Attach it to 3 points of contact: your sacrum, between your shoulder blades, and the back of the head. And then try and do this motion while keeping all of those points of contact. So some of you, that might be where you are today. The limitation to this motion should be the flexibility of your hamstrings. So if you're feeling a gentle stretch in your hamstrings at the bottom, you're probably doing pretty well. Cool? All right. So here's what we're working on. If you can basically manage that motion, here's where I want your focus. Your focus is pushing the hips back rather than tipping forward, okay? This is essential. I want my shoulders to move mostly down towards my feet and not in front of my feet, okay? That means that the hips need to displace backwards, okay? Now, the tension should be hamstrings, glutes. I hopefully should not feel a lot in my low back, especially if I'm not holding weight. I should feel mostly tension, glutes and hamstrings. Yes, there is some tension here, but a majority should be on the posterior of my hips and legs, not in my back. If that feels comfortable, go ahead, try holding some weight. The difference between a good morning and a deadlift is just where you hold the weight. So a deadlift, we'd hold the weight down low. A good morning, we would hold the weight up high, so close to the chest, like this. Okay? Give this a try. We're shooting for 8 reps from everyone here. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's give everyone about, what, a minute? Cool, 1 minute, go for it. So here's the main mistakes I see with this. First off, knees need to face forward towards the feet, not collapse in, or potentially not flaring out like this, okay? You should feel 3 points of contact in your foot: big toe knuckle, little toe knuckle, and heel. And if you feel all those, usually your knee is gonna face mostly forward, okay? Also, not using the glutes is a big problem with this one. So if you don't feel your glutes, if you're tapping back there, you're like, yeah, it's all soft, they're not turning on. You need to just squeeze your butt the whole time, on the way down, on the way up. See if you can get them to turn on. Tap them if you need to. Cool? All right, take a break. Let's move on. We're doing a push-up. So we worked on the plank already, so everyone knows what a good plank is. A good plank is shoulder blades pressed apart, lower back a little bit round, tailbone tucked. That means your core is engaged. So this is a good top position for the push-up. If push-ups are really hard for you, that's fine. Go down to the knees. Totally fine. Next, elbows need to stay closer to the body as I go down, and my thumbs should end up in my armpits. So as I go down, my elbows stay closer to my body, and you can see on my head is in front of my hands and my thumb is in my armpits. That's where I want everyone to try and aim for. Not here where my hands are close to my face and my elbows are flared. Go. And finally, on the way back up, I need you to finish the rep, going all the way back to that fully planked position where my shoulder blades are apart. Every rep, the shoulder blade needs to come apart. I should not see saggy shoulder blades. Cool? If those are challenging, try knee. If that's still challenging, just work on lowering and getting back up however you want. mainly focus on the down portion. Let's go ahead. Everyone's shooting for 8 to 12 reps here. Let's do a full about 45 seconds. 45, let's go. So again, if this is challenging on the wrists, have something available you can grab onto, like dumbbells or these cool Vita Vibes. They're like little mini wooden parallel bars. So really nice. What I like to think about at this very top position in the plank is this little extra rotation where the elbow pit faces forward. That can really help lock out the shoulder blades. As I go down, the main focus is not letting the shoulder blades drift up towards the ears. So if you're going down, you feel your shoulder blades do this, where they go up and then the shoulder blade tips forward. No. Pull the shoulder blade down, keep the shoulder blade tilted backwards. Oh, take a break. Let's move on to the good morning one more time. Shake it out a little bit. Getting deep into the workout here. So I'm gonna add some weight to mine. I'm gonna shoot for 8 reps. Let's go for a minute. Remember, everything facing forward. Let's go. A lot of glutes. Keep that back nice and flat. If you are unsure whether your back is flat, you should not be holding any weight. That's for sure. If you're unsure, use a mirror. Use a front camera of your phone. I do this all the time. Set up a camera, grab my phone, and just move in front of it as if I was using a mirror. You're gonna be really surprised at what your movement looks like. Sometimes it feels like you're doing something, and then when you see it on camera, it looks nothing like that. So common for myself and for most of the people I work with. So check in with yourself regularly. Record it. Go back and look at it later. If you record things, the other nice benefit is you get to actually track your progress, which is super helpful. All right, take a break. We're coming back to the ground for one more set of push-ups. So, as I was saying, right as the timer went off last time for the push-ups, really pay attention to what your shoulder blades are doing, okay? The shoulder blades are the most overlooked part of all the upper body movements that we do. You really need to be in touch with what your shoulder blades are doing as you're doing these motions. So if you're gonna watch yourself in a mirror, which doesn't really make sense for a push-up, but you could probably work it out, or potentially take a video of yourself, watch and see what your shoulder blades are doing. A lot of people will see that the shoulder blade is gonna wanna come up and tip forward as they go down. So they'll end up in this position, okay? That is not a good position to be in. We want shoulder blades down and tipped back. Not necessarily, like you don't need them retracted super far. I mean, at the bottom position, they should be a little retracted, but definitely not up and definitely not tipped forward. Cool? Let's go ahead and do 8 to 12 reps here again. We'll give everyone 45 seconds. Let's go. Finish that push-up. Always keep the core engaged. No saggy shoulder blades, no saggy bellies. Don't want to see the back arching to get up. If you feel like you have to arch to get up, I'd rather you work from your knees and work on keeping a really solid core rather than going saggy belly on me. Okay, let's take a break. So last set of exercises here. We're moving on. This last exercise is called the Patrick Step Up. Patrick, he's a pretty cool guy. He made up this exercise, apparently. He claims he did. I believe him. So this guy, he's really, he has dove deep into knee and hip health. And this exercise is designed for you to get really strong knees so that they don't hinder your progress with working on your hips. Because if you notice, a lot of the movements that involve the hips are also going to involve the knees. Need strong knees. We don't want the knees to be the limitation. So we're going to stand on something. A stair works. You actually really don't need to stand on something. If you don't have anything, I'll show you how we're going to do this without. Now what we're going to do, you're going to stand on one foot. If you need something to balance, have a wall next to you. Have that broomstick next to you, whatever you got. Okay? We're going to allow the knee to travel forward as my hips travel down. Okay? This is an arbitrary height. I'm about 6 inches off the ground. You might need less. Potentially, you could use more. The goal here, upright torso. I don't want to see any tipping forward of the torso. Very, very upright. And hips should not travel back. They need to stay above the heel or even in front of the heel. Cool? If you don't have something to step on, don't worry. You can just work on this, trying to slide the heel forward and come back. Slide the heel forward, come back. Okay? So we're going to do this 10 times. Here's what we're after. A lot of involvement of the quad here. Okay? That's the main thing. You're probably also going to feel your butt, which is good. We're after the quad. Let's go ahead. Let's just put a minute and a half on the clock. Let's let everyone go at their own pace. 10 to 15 reps on each side. Let's go for it. If this feels very easy for you, which for a lot of you, I think it will, add some weight. I have some 15-pound dumbbells in my hands. This feels like a good weight. You could potentially go really heavy with this. I will do this with a barbell on my back with a good amount of weight. So don't be afraid to load this. If you're feeling any pain in the knee, just go, don't go as deep. Also, this exercise is really good at teaching you how to use your ankle. A lot of us forgot how to use our ankle because we got nice cushiony shoes that prevent us from ever really feeling anything in our feet. So, as you're doing this exercise, pay attention to where your weight goes on your foot. It should stay mostly even between the front and the back of your foot. If you find that as you do this, it all goes to your toes and your heel almost comes off the ground, that's a bad sign. You need to be able to keep pretty equal foot pressure as you do this whole exercise. Between big toe, knuckle, pinky toe, knuckle, and heel. I'm getting a good quad burn here. Again, always pay attention to alignment. With that exercise, make sure toes, knees, and hip stay mostly in alignment there, just as if you were standing. Cool. All right. We're going to use that band that I said you'll need in the beginning. I already have it attached. We're going to do a row here with the band. I'm going to do it seated. I like the version of seated. It takes out all the mechanics of the hip, so I can mainly be upright. If doing it seated is hard for you, you can try doing it sitting on your heels, kneeling, or standing. If you're doing standing, I'd recommend doing a split stance. But everything applies here, no matter what position you're in. So grab onto that band. We're going to start with the shoulder blades down and slightly apart. So see how my shoulder blades are actually a little bit in front. I'm going to make sure I'm nice and tall in the spine. Ribs are down. And that's going to be important here. I'm going to pull, imagining I'm trying to pull my elbows behind me. Okay? And notice, I'm not lifting my chest to go further. I'm keeping my ribs where they are and making sure the shoulder blades and shoulder are moving around my ribs. My ribs are fixed in place. So I don't want to see lifting of the ribs. I also don't want to see head moving forward to get further. Okay? Those are two things I want you to pay attention to. Other than that, shoulder blades down. Shoulder blades should move forward. As you pull, shoulder blades should move back. Cool. Let's go ahead and do 10 to 15 reps. We'll put a minute on the clock and go for it. When you're doing this exercise, you should feel tension in the lats, tension between the shoulder blades, and of course, you should feel your bicep. If you are only feeling your bicep, it probably means you're pulling with your elbow, so you might be doing something like this. I want the forearm to be in line with the band. That means the elbow can stay fairly relaxed. So you can think of your forearm as just an extension of the band. Where all the movement is happening is shoulder, shoulder blade. Okay? So notice my elbow is relaxed. It's literally relaxed. It's kind of like just kind of hanging there. I like to think of my hands as ropes with hooks. So I'm thinking this whole thing is a rope with a hook at the end. All right, let's do one more round of that Patrick step up. I'll do a straight on so you can see what's going on from a front view. Ready? Let's do it. Minute and a half. 10 to 15 reps. Switch when you're ready. So notice knee, hip, toes, all in alignment. All right? A lot of times what we'll see is either knee diving in, or this is actually a very similar problem stemming from a different part of the body, hip swaying out. Pay attention to those two things. Both we'd like to get rid of if possible. We'd like to keep the hip stacked over the foot and the knee in alignment with both. A mirror can be very helpful for this one because you'll catch yourself doing weird things like hip hiking, so one hip riding up higher than the other, hip rotating that you're unaware of, one hip dropping back or forward in comparison to the other. So all these little nuances to your movement will start to be very apparent in something like this. So I'd recommend at some point trying this in front of a mirror, or at least getting it on camera so you can see what's going on with your body. Cool, let's take a break. One more set of that band row, and then we'll call it a day. All right, let's put a minute on the clock, 10 to 15 reps. Let's go for it. As you're finishing up, I'm going to talk at you for a little bit. First off, did we have any questions come up on the feed that pertained to everyone? Cool. If you had personal questions that came up that didn't get answered to the group, that's because when we're in the group setting, we try to only answer questions that could pertain to many people out there. But if you do have a specific question about something you're dealing with, go ahead and shoot us an email. Our email is uprightlive@uprighthealth.com. Through that, we answer a lot of personal questions. We try to get to them as quick as possible. We're anticipating that through this, we might get more emails than normal, so be patient with us. Cool? All right, so we are done for the day. Thank you, first of all, for joining. Again, we do this every Wednesday at 10 a.m. Pacific time. If you enjoyed it, remember, if you sign up by the end of the day today, you get 2 weeks free. Again, with that, you get our full programming for April, as well as you'll get a peek into what programming we did in March. You get all the videos associated with the programming, and you get live classes. Anything you want to add, Chris?
No.
Cool.
You tell them if they're not already subscribed, there's a link in the chat.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And if you're not already subscribed, there is a link in the chat. Is there also like description box links and stuff like that? Cool. Yeah. Link in the description box, as well as, can you add things to the description box right now? Can you put a link to committed HP band? So the band that I used, if you are curious about that, we've had a lot of questions from a lot of people about this band over the use of using this in class. So if you're curious about this band, check it out on committedhp.com. We really like it because we know a lot of our clients have problems putting bands around the knees. This thing's nice. It hooks on and is adjustable. This is the recovery version, the light version. I would recommend doing the light version. It's still a good enough strength to do most exercises. The stronger ones are significantly stronger. So if you are more of a strength athlete of some kind, the stronger ones are definitely the way to go. Cool? All right. Thanks for joining. If you want to subscribe, I'll see you next time. If not, I'll probably see you on a YouTube video somewhere. All right. As always, pain, sex, life, shit. Later.